In the vast and often confusing landscape of contemporary information, it is essential to distinguish fact from fiction. History, in particular, is a fertile field for misinterpretation and misleading narratives. Our commitment is always to present the facts with rigor and precision. In the meantime, subscribe to the Story of Vasuta channel so you don't miss the next videos, and leave a like. August 2nd, 1589. The Château de Saint-Cloud, on the outskirts of Paris, becomes the stage for one of the most controversial deaths in French history. Henry III, the last ruler of the Valois dynasty, lies dying in his bed, stabbed by a fanatical monk. But this is no ordinary king. This is the man who shook all of Europe with his behavior, his perfumed clothes, his glittering jewels, and a lifestyle that transformed the French court into a theater of unprecedented scandals. At only 37 years old, Henry is paying the price for a life lived entirely outside of convention. His last words are not addressed to God, nor to his kingdom, but to his beloved mignons, the young courtiers who accompanied him throughout his reign, and with whom he shared luxuries, secrets, and suspicions. Thus ends the story of the most controversial ruler of France, a king who confused the chroniclers of his time and continues to divide historians even today, because Henry III became the symbol of everything that in the 16th century was considered unacceptable in a monarch: vanity, ambiguity, nonconformism. His court was whispered throughout Europe as a place of unspeakable habits. To understand his story, we must go back to the beginning. September 19th, 1551. Henry is born in Fontainebleau, the third son of Henry II and Catherine de' Medici. From an early age, he shows traits that deeply disturb the court. While his brothers devote themselves to virile games, Henry prefers dolls, mirrors, and pastimes considered feminine. His mother, the powerful Catherine, tries in every way to correct him, but without success. During his adolescence, Henry develops an obsessive taste for fashion, cosmetics, and jewelry. He spends hours in front of his mirror, experimenting with hairstyles and applying imported perfumes. His guardians note with concern that the prince seems more interested in the ladies' dresses than in affairs of state or the art of war. Catherine still hopes to shape him into a sovereign who lives up to her expectations. She forces him to participate in hunts, tournaments, and military exercises. But Henry appears increasingly fascinated by ceremony, ornaments, and beauty. Chroniclers write that he arrived at hunting trips adorned with more jewels than the queens themselves. The public scandal explodes at the age of 16, when, during a court ball, Henry shows up wearing a dress that combines male and female clothing: a bodice embroidered with pearls, a puffed skirt under the doublet, and a diamond necklace that belonged to his mother. The nobility is left speechless. In 1573, Catherine decides to send him away from Paris. Henry is elected King of Poland and sent to Krakow. He hoped that the responsibility would cure him, but the opposite happens. Free from his mother, Henry gives free rein to his eccentricities. She transformed the Polish court into a spectacle of vanity and luxury, receiving ambassadors in ornate dresses, precious tiaras, and elaborate makeup, daily perfumed baths, dozens of servants for her appearance, a collection of clothes that rivaled that of any European queen. In 1574, upon the death of his brother, Charles IX, Henry literally fled Poland, disguised as an Italian noblewoman to return to Paris and ascend the throne. His coronation was an unprecedented spectacle, a crown modified to accommodate the hairstyle, a tunic embroidered with pearls and stones, an event so eccentric that many nobles deserted the ceremony. As king, Henry revolutionizes court etiquette. He introduces rules inspired by women's courts, where fashion, perfumes, and beauty become official topics of the royal council. The center of his reign, however, revolves around the mignons, young and beautiful courtiers, dressed even more sumptuously than the king, who received titles, fiefs, and government positions. Among them, Anne de Joyeuse, Jean-Louis de Nogaret, and François de Pinay stand out. Inexperienced boys, but elevated to dukes and advisors. They sleep near the king, participate in his beauty rituals, and arouse disdain, envy, and gossip. The princely wedding, organized by Henry for Joyeuse, is one of the most sumptuous events ever seen, supervised in every detail by the king himself. But the pomp comes at a cost. The expense of clothes, jewels, and ceremonies becomes astronomical, contributing to the economic crisis of the kingdom. Each public outing requires a new outfit, often more expensive than the budget of entire cities. Henry keeps a detailed diary of his outfits to never repeat himself. Not even during political crises did Henry abandon his habits. He took part in religious processions in embroidered robes, causing embarrassment to the bishops. His devotion, ostentatious but judged excessively theatrical, was ridiculed by the preachers. In 1588, the country is in flames due to the wars of religion. The Catholic League, led by Henry of Guise, openly accuses him of moral decadence. His enemies circulate pamphlets calling him unfit for the throne, feminine, corrupt. During the day of the barricades, Henry is forced to flee Paris, but he does not forget his trunks of clothes and jewels. Even in the escape, vanity takes precedence. At the end of his life, Enrico is increasingly alone and paranoid. The mignons have died in duels or have moved away. However, he never abandons his aesthetic rituals, as if elegance could still save the image of a power that has now collapsed. His end comes at the hands of Jacques Clément, a radicalized Dominican monk. On August 2nd, 1589, Henry is stabbed to death. With him, the Valois dynasty is extinguished. His last words, not for France, not for God, but for his beloved mignon. Henry III's legacy is still a matter of debate. Was he a refined patron of the Renaissance or a frivolous ruler who contributed to the decline of the monarchy? Was he a courageous man who challenged the gender norms of his time or a paragon of dangerous debauchery? What is certain is that he was a king impossible to ignore. In a rigidly codified era, Henry III chose to live according to his own identity, even at the cost of the throne, even at the cost of his life. Today, more than 4 centuries after his tragic death, his figure continues to arouse scandal, fascination, and reflection. That's all for today. And what do you think of this story? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.